Every Fortnite Battle Pass is full of plenty of skins, but there's always a few that stand out as the worst skin of the respective Battle Pass. So join me today as I go through each Fortnite Battle Pass and give my personal pick for the worst skin of the pass, starting out with Chapter 1, Season 1. Now this is one of the easier picks on the list, as there are only 2 skins. And while yes, this wasn't a traditional Battle Pass, but since they had a store where skins were locked behind levels, we'll consider it for the sake of the video. And to be honest, I don't think either skin with Renegade Raider or Aerial Assault Trooper are impressive, but one of them has to take the spot as the worst. And in my opinion, Aerial Assault Trooper is the worst skin among the 2. Next up, we have Chapter 1, Season 2. And I think Royal Knight was definitely the weakest of the bunch. And while I do love the Knight aesthetic, Royal Knight is basically just a female version of Blue Squire. And when it comes down to it, I just prefer Blue Squire over this skin. And coming in next, we have Chapter 1, Season 3. Now I have 2 skins for this pick, with Moonwalker and the Mission Specialist, and I don't enjoy either one. I get they're just supposed to be generic Fortnite characters as astronauts, but when you have skins like Dark Voyager and the Reaper in this pass, it's hard to say that these 2 aren't the worst of the pass, even though I actually like the color scheme of both skins. Now Chapter 1 Season 4 introduced some pretty great skins, but for this pick I have to go with Battlehawk as the worst of the bunch. This skin just feels like it belongs in the item shop for 800 V-Bucks. There's really not much more to say about it, other than the fact that the skin is simply generic. And next up we have Chapter 1 Season 5. Now this battle pass gave us some fantastic skins, but in all honesty, I can't say that Huntress is one of those skins. Now don't get me wrong, I like the overall Viking vibe as it's a pretty cool theme, but I feel like Ragnarok already covered that theme, and I think that Huntress probably would have worked better as an item shop skin rather than taking up a valuable spot for the pass. Now if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure you hit that like button, as if we get 2,000 likes on today's video, I'll make a video ranking every single battle pass skin in the game. Also make sure you smash that subscribe button and join us on the road to 10k, because less than 10% of you watching right now are actually subscribed. And also be sure to use code Twistychase in the Fortnite item shop. Next up we have Chapter 1 Season 6. Now this season gave us some amazing Halloween themed skins, but we have to talk about the worst skin of the pass with Nightshade. Honestly, I have no idea what Epic Games are going for with this one, as we've already seen Tomato Head skins in the game that are at least somewhat interesting. And when you stack this up against other skins in this battle pass, it's easily the weakest. And next up we have Chapter 1 Season 7. And I know a lot of you might be thinking of putting Trog here, but hear me out. I actually think that Trog is a pretty underrated skin. And the reason I'm putting Powder in this spot is that compared to other skins in this pass, she doesn't bring anything unique to the table. That said, I wouldn't call her a horrible skin, as this battle pass is just one of the best when it comes to quality overall. Now Chapter 1 Season 8 had one of the best battle passes of all time, and honestly every skin in it is solid, except for my pick with Master Key. Everything about this skin just doesn't work for me. The hair is weird, and that orange and green color scheme is just a no-go. Now I will admit that the skin looks a bit better with the white style and the mask on, but it's still not enough to make me a fan of the skin overall. And next up we have Chapter 1 Season 9. Now this is definitely one of the weaker passes in general, but the weakest skin in the entire pass for me is Vega. I'm just not a fan of the overall look and the color scheme. And moving on to the last season of Chapter 1, we have Season X. Now this is one of my favorite battle passes of all time. I get that this battle pass overall is solid, but when it comes down to it, there has to be that one skin that stands out as the least appealing, and for me that's Sparkle Supreme. Moving on to Chapter 2, we have Season 1, and this battle pass brought us Turk versus Riptide, and I get why this skin is in the pass, as he's a fisherman, and with boats and fishing being introduced in Season 1, it makes sense. But even with that context in mind, I'm just not a big fan of this skin. It feels a bit too niche, and I don't think it stands out compared to other skins in the past, like my favorites with 8-Ball and Ripley. And next up, we have Chapter 2 Season 2, and hear me out, as I probably know I'm gonna get some backlash for this, but my pick goes to Brutus, as I feel the skin is just way too bulky to be fun to use. And realistically, when you look at other skins in this battle pass, I'd honestly say that most of them are S tier or A tier skin, so someone has to be at the bottom, and for me that's Brutus. Now Chapter 2 Season 3 had a pretty solid battle pass overall, but Aquaman just wasn't it. I get why they included him, as he fits the theme of the season, and it makes sense in that context, but let's be real, Aquaman's overall design just isn't good. And next up we have Chapter 2 Season 4, which has one of the best passes overall, but if I had to pick a least favorite, it would be Thor. And I don't think the skin is terrible, but all the other skins in the past honored the iconic look of their respective character, and this just didn't feel like the Thor that most of us know and love. And next up we have Chapter 2 Season 5. Now this season had an awesome concept with bounty hunter from multiple realities, Mando, a pancake outlaw, this cool anime skin, a robot, and then Reese. Now I wouldn't say this skin is terrible, but she just feels super out of place. And moving on, we have Chapter 2 Season 6. Now the Primal season wasn't great, and while I don't think the battle pass was that great, I do wonder why Epic Games decided decided to include Neymar Jr. Now maybe it's just because I'm not a fan of this particular player, or soccer in general, but I just think the skin is pretty boring, and it's extremely random for a Primal Theme season. Moving on, we have Chapter 2, Season 7. Now this Battle Pass wasn't one of my favorites, but there are still a couple of these skins that I still wear, but unfortunately Zig isn't one of them. In closing out Chapter 2, we have Chapter 2, Season 8. Now this is another case where the weakest skin in the Battle Pass doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. JP Chimpanski is a fun meme skin, but when you compare him to the rest of the skins, he's definitely the weakest link. With that said though, his emote is a total banger. And kicking off Chapter 3, we have Season 1. Now I went back and forth between John Llama and Gumball for this pick, but in the end I have to go with John Llama. Now get the skin as a play on the classic Fortnite llama, but we've had plenty of these skins in game that take the same concept and execute it way better than this. The idea is cool, but it just didn't hit the mark for me, and it's a skin that I haven't worn since Season 1. Next up we have Chapter 3, Season 2. Now I know Gunner is important to the storyline, and that definitely gives the skin more popularity, but I'm just not a fan of the skin. I will admit, the main reason is because he's bulky, but it's also because I think the skin is a bit boring. So for me, he's definitely the weakest link. And moving on, we have Chapter 3, Season 3. Now the vibe in Battle Pass is one of the weakest in general in my opinion, so when a skin lands at the bottom of the barrel in this pass, you know it's not great. And Stormfarer is everything bad that you can imagine with the skin. The design is super basic, the color scheme is ugly, and the alternate style is underwhelming. And moving on to the finale of Chapter 3, we have Season 4, and my pick for the season is Twin. Now this skin's a 2-for-1, as the skin had two versions that were drastically different, and in all honesty, I'm not a fan of either look, and I haven't used this skin since I unlocked it during Paradise, which was over 2 years ago. Now I know a lot of you might say this pick should go to Grizz, but at least Grizz tried something new and was more interesting. And moving on to Chapter 4, we have Season 1. Now this Battle Pass gave us some fantastic skins that are among my favorites for the chapter, but for me, Masai just felt extremely random and generic. He had a skater vibe with a pretty bland look, though I did like the style with the mask on. Still, when you compare him to skins like the Ageless, Dusty, Halsey, and Doom, there's just no way that Masai doesn't end up being the weakest skin of this pass. And moving on to Chapter 4, Season 2, we have Eren Yeager. Alright, before all of you head to the comments section, hear me out. The Mega Battle Pass is one of the best of all time, and there's no way that I'm putting any of these incredible skins at the bottom when Eren Yeager in his brown jacket and skinny jeans is right there. All jokes aside, I don't think this skin is bad at all. That being said though, I've only seen a few episodes of Attack on Titan, so maybe I'm missing something, but for me, he just didn't stand out as much as the other skins in this pass. Moving on to Chapter 4, Season 3, we have Ryan. Now I know I might sound like a broken record, but I don't think there's any skins from the Wilds Battle Pass that are truly bad. It's just a matter of which one I enjoy the least. And moving on to Chapter 4, Season 4, we have Nolan Chance. Now I've said this before, and I'll say it 1,000 more times. Nolan Chance is the worst skin of any Chapter 4 Battle Pass. He might even be one of the worst of all time. You all love to call me out every single time I speak negatively about a skin, but I've never seen anyone come to defend this skin that straight up looks like Vector from Despicable Me. But in all seriousness, this skin stands out, but not in a good way, and it just doesn't work for me. Now moving on to Season OG, we have Lil Split. Now this is another case where someone has to take the spot just for the sake of the premise of the video. There's absolutely nothing about this skin that makes me think that he's bad. He's just here to take up a slot, so let's move on. And heading into Chapter 5, Season 1, we have Peter Griffin. Peter Griffin is a great meme skin, and as a fan of the Family Guy show, I think he's a fun addition. I've never worn the skin with a serious intention, but it definitely has a charm. I can't deny I enjoy wearing it for the fun of it, and sometimes that works for some people, but Peter Griffin is certainly my least favorite from this pass. Next up we have Chapter 5, Season 2. Now Fortnite really cooked for this battle pass, giving us unique takes on classic characters, but my pick for this pass is Zeus because he got done dirty. The top half of the skin is great, but Epic Games just threw all the potential out of the window when they decided to strap shotgun shells to his chest, grenades to his waist, and of course the camo pants. And moving on to Season 3, I think the Wreck Battle Pass was fantastic, but Ringmaster is by far the weakest link. The survey concept for this skin had so much potential, but instead we ended up with JoJo Siwa. But I will admit, the helmet style makes the skin a little better, but this is still a skin that I left behind in Season 3 and I haven't worn since. And wrapping up Chapter 5, we have Pilvarine. Now what does set him apart from Peter is that I don't think Pilvarine is a bad skin at all. He's just the weakest link in a fantastic battle pass that's filled with Marvel characters. And our last pick for today's video is Undercover Sky from our most recent season with Chapter 2 Remix. Now this skin was pretty disappointing for me as I was super hyped for the skin when we saw her in the teasers, but something about the skin in game just doesn't work. But as always, all these picks are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear yours down in the comments below. But as always guys, take care and stay twisty.